Hello everybody, I'm Jan from Sydney Visa. Among the different types of visas that exist to immigrate to Australia as a professional, there are three most popular visas. They are 189, 190 and relatively new visa 491. Not many people understand the difference between these visas. That's why in today's videos I would like to talk about those differences. Okay, visa 189 is the skill independent visa. Let's call it just independent for simplicity. Visa 190 is the skill nominated visa. Let's call it just nominated. And visa 491 is the skilled regional provisional visa, and let's just call it regional. General eligibility criteria for independent, nominated and regional visas are almost the same. You need to be aged between 18 and 44 inclusive. You must have a minimum of competent English, which is the equivalent of IELTS score 6 in each component. Your occupation must be on a relevant occupational list, and you must hold an official qualification assessment for this occupation, and you need to meet the point test score minimum of 65 points. Now, let's talk about those visas in more detail. Independent visa, right? So what does it mean, independent? This means one thing: you do not need to be nominated or sponsored by anybody, any government body or the family member. If you have enough points to apply for this visa, this is the most efficient pathway into Australia, because you come in and you land with the PR residency, and you don't have obligations to fulfill. So, what's the catch? Well, firstly, not all occupations are eligible for this visa, and secondly, the majority of candidates do not score high enough points to get for this visa. Yes, the minimum score, the pass mark is 65. However, to be invited to apply for the independent visa with 65 points is quite difficult. The truth is that most occupations require at least 80 points or higher. Why this happens? Well, because there is some great, highly competitive occupations like accountants and IT specialists, and there might be a great number of candidates applying for the visa with these professions. Of course, there are less competitive occupations that still lead to Australian permanent residency with less than 80 and 90 points. Nonetheless, there are alternative ways, such as nominated visa. The eligibility criteria for this visa is the same as for the independent one, but candidate must also be nominated by an Australian state or territory. The positive aspect of this visa is that the nomination gives you the additional 5 points. And another advantage of the visa is that the application is being assessed by a human being, not by a robot, like what happens with the independent visa. So once you have a nomination, you will be invited to apply for the visa quite soon, often within 24 hours. While with the independent visa, once you put your application through, you can wait for an invitation for a few years. So what's the catch here? Well, firstly, most states have their own independent list of occupations, and if your occupation is in a department list but is not on a state list, you either are not allowed to apply for the nomination, or if you are allowed, you will have additional strict requirements. Secondly, most states nowadays require a job offer from the particular state. So the job offer, what is that? That's the letter from an Australian employer offering you a job, essentially. It is not an obligation to employ you upon your arrival. It's simply an option, I guess a proposal that you may show to the state as the proof of your employability. And thirdly, you will be obligated to live in this state for 2 or 3 years since your arrival, depending on the state. Before, you could leave the sponsoring state after 6 months and there was no consequence. Today, however, this obligation is being monitored, and if you choose to leave the state without a special permission, you're risking of losing your PR status. Next visa on our agenda is the regional visa. This is a relatively new visa. As I have mentioned earlier, it is a provisional visa, which requires for a candidate to be sponsored by a region of Australia. This means that the candidate must reside in regional Australia upon their arrival. As you might be aware, majority of the Australian population lives along the east coast, particularly Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. The rest of the continent doesn't have high enough populations, which is being dealt with migration, with overseas migration. That's why the government is trying to get people to move into regional areas to develop them. So at the moment, Australian government views this migration program as a priority, and regional migration gives you additional 15 points in your point test. Some time ago, the word regional implied a rather remote area. However, since November 2019, all Australia except for Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane is considered regional. So this means if, for example, you get nominated by state of Victoria for the visa 190, the nominated visa we're talking about, you may live anywhere in a state, Victoria state, including Melbourne. However, if you get regional nomination by the state of Victoria, you may live anywhere in Victoria, excluding Melbourne. Just like nominated visa, searching for regional nomination is a separate stage of your immigration process. Each region has its own policy, occupation list, and might have additional requirements. Once you have been nominated, you will be invited to apply to the visa at a relatively short time frame, similarly as nominated visa. With this visa, you have to remember that it is the temporary visa, which is valid for 5 years and cannot be extended. While you're on this visa, you have to live in a prescribed region for at least 3 years. And the key aspect here is that you need to work for the 3 years, and your annual salary for the 3 years needs to be no lower than $55,000 per annum. Only if the above-mentioned requirements are fulfilled, you will be eligible to apply for a follow-up with Visa 191, which is a permanent visa. This visa does not require to sit in the additional point test or doesn't have any age limit. So this means that if you turn 45 while you were on your original visa, you'll still be able to apply for the subsequent permanent visa 191. This is it for now. In the next video, I will continue discussing the difference between the independent, nominated and regional visa. I will share with you information about some of the visa limitations, the social packages that is offered on each of the visa, and some of the costs. So please stay in tune, subscribe to the channel, click the bell button so you don't miss the important videos, and ask your questions in the comments below. Cheers from down under. Goodbye.